we were talking about beautifying. We have to clean and then decorate and then sanctify. And this house in Lanka had all the signs of sanctified. And so Hanumanji was curious that, is this another trick? Because asuras, interesting what asura qualities are. I think I've spoken a little bit about asura qualities already, right? In terms of Ravana and in terms of even when we were talking about Bali. So one of the other asuric qualities is pretentiousness. To put up a facade of being something I am not is a very asuric quality. And so, in fact, in the Bhagavad Gita, when we do the virtues and values that Krishna says is important to live by, non-hypocrisy is one of them. And Arjuna's name itself means straightforward. Means what you see is what you get. There's no pretentiousness. But asuric quality is to be pretentious. And so Vibhishan is thinking this might be a trick. And so he doesn't want to get excited that there's a house with Ram's name written on it, because of course by now Hanumanji just adores Ramchandraji. So he's waiting and observing, and he sees this asura who is still fast asleep, and he turns in his bed. And while turning, he says, Ram. Now, when you're asleep, you can't control, what you say. Or when you are highly emotional, what comes out of your mouth, it's very hard to be alert and pretentious at that time, because, like if it's shock or even if it's extreme joy, like sometimes people get such good news and then swear words flow out of their mouth and it's joy. It's like, but there's such horrible swear words that come out of their mouth. And this is how you're expressing joy, and it's because that's what the mind has gotten conditioned to use, right? So when we're in a heightened state of emotion or when we're asleep, definitely there's no filter, and so there's no pretentiousness. And so this Rakshasa says Ram in his sleep as he's turning. And so now Hanumanji knows for sure this is a bhakta. And so he goes in and introduces himself. And Vibhishan says that I am Ravana's brother. He thinks you're Ravana's brother? But here you can see the house is clean. You can see the house is not highly decorated, but sanctified. You can see that he is saying Bhagwan's name. You can see that there's so much devotion because the tulsi plant is well kept and it's flourishing. And so they get into this conversation. And one of the beautiful things about satsang and the meaning of satsang, when we like in a class like this and we're talking about the Ramayana, 100% that's satsang. And when you were the great master, like even you just go and sit in Pujya Guruji's room, and people used to travel around with Gurudev, Guruji, Swamiji, just in their presence when you're watching how they're interacting with other people and people have questions. And so there's constant satsang. But this satsang is when two devotees meet and they're talking about Bhagwan or Guru, and that overflowing of love that is there in the devotee's heart. To be in the presence of that, it's satsang. Yeah. And the connection is different because the altar which we bow down to is the same. And so there's the sense of understanding. So here when Hanumanji and Vibhishan have met now, there's this beautiful satsang that goes on between Vibhishan and Hanumanji. And so first let's explain Vibhishan being Ravana's brother. So he's in a Rakshasa body, just like right now we're in a human body. And so there's Rakshasa tendencies. But over the period of history, we have seen that even though you can be in a Rakshasa body, you can still be very, very sattvic. And so in the Bhagavatam stories, the first one that we see of this is Prahlad, and then Prahlad's entire lineage, which is Bali. And now we see it in Vibhishan. So the story goes back to Jay and Vijay as gods in heaven. Do y'all remember this? Did I do this? I did do this, yes. And the Sanat Kumars come, and Jay and Vijay get very arrogant and say, no, you cannot enter. And the Sanat Kumars curse that you will, if pride has come into your heart, you have no place in heaven, which is the most important thing. If pride has come into your heart, you cannot stay in heaven. Then you have to go back down to earth. And so they are born 3 times as horrible, horrible Rakshasas, and this is the second birth. And one has come as Ravana, and one has come as Kumbhakarna. Now, when this curse is given, then Bhagavan comes out from, Vaikuntha, I guess, and it, says, if a servant has done something wrong, then the master is as responsible as the servant. And so I too shall bear the curse that was given, and I too shall go down to earth. And then the Sanat Kumars feel horrible. Like already they started feeling horrible. The minute Bhagwan came out, they already started. Like the minute the curse finished, they started feeling horrible. Like, why did we curse? And they also started thinking, like, how can we curse Bhagwan's staff? Like you should complain to the boss about the staff. You can't go and fire somebody else's staff, but they are bhaktas, and so they can, because Bhagwan would give them full right to be able to fire his staff. And so they thinking like, no, that we didn't quite do something right. And then Bhagwan only comes and says as the master, I am as responsible. And then Bhagwan takes the curse and he's going down to earth. So then they think, oh, this is terrible. So they say, okay, we'll also go down to earth. And so they have come as Vibhishan. So Vishnu Bhagwan came as Ramchandraji, Jay and Vijay came as Kumbhakarna and Kamsa, and the Sanat Kumars have come as Vibhishan. Now, why? Why should the Sanat Kumars come? And as per the story, it's just they felt guilty, so they also came, but no. So when the Sanat Kumars are Nitya, they take the form of a small child and they perpetually young. But they're great rishis. They were the first mind-born sons of Brahmaji, and they attained enlightenment. And so they are Guru Roop, so to say, Rishi culture. And so now they've met Jay and Vijay, and Jay and Vijay are proud and arrogant, and they are saying you can't go into Vaikunth because Bhagwan is resting. But nobody should ever be denied access to Bhagwan. And so, yes, Jay and Vijay were very wrong in denying access to Bhagwan. But as rishis, as guru, as someone who is keeper of this knowledge, they should have explained and taught rather than curse. And so to now do what is the right way to teach and to show, they take these avatars. One was Prahlad and now Vibhishan, to give a role model of how to behave and to give a demonstration of how bhakti can manifest in a devotee's heart and how values can be upheld and faith and devotion and dharma can be kept as the priority. Now, most of us will have some loyalty to dharma. We value values, no doubt, but maybe it's not the priority. It's there when we get around to it, or if it's really, like when I was doing the Gargar Gita talks, then sometimes It wasn't happening. So then I'd call some people and say, I think you should invite me over. And I should be able to, you call all your friends and I'll do a talk and then you have to feed all your friends. I know, I'm being very demanding. And so most the reply would be, I'm so lucky you thought of me. Like I didn't think of you to call you, but you've thought of me and I'll definitely do it. So we have the value for it, but it's not a priority. And so here, Vibhishan and even Prahlad, in their life, they're really showing how this is priority. Shraddha is given priority, Dharma is given priority. And so Hanumanji says to Vibhishan that, wow, I met Ramchandraji and I love him so much and I get to stay with him and serve him. But you are loving him not even having met him. And that's so incredible. And Vibhishan says, no, what are you saying? I'm the most unlucky. I've been born into this horrible Rakshasa body and I'm surrounded by all these people. You've just flown around Lanka. You've just seen. It's like every street is Lang Kwai Fong. So then Hanumanji gives this example. Your blessing is that you are surrounded by so much Rajas and Tamas. And it's like living, like the tongue lives in between 34 teeth. 34, right? We're supposed to have 34. Most people don't have 34, they have less. 32? However many teeth you have. Actually, it's amazing we don't bite our tongues more often. Because I guess it's all positioned very well. Thank you, Bhagwan. The tongue is in constant danger of being bit. And so, not that the tongue has a separate awareness, but as though if the tongue did have a separate awareness, it would have to be so alert to just get out of the way because we're talking all the time and then we're eating all the time. And so there's this constant movement. And the idea of 32 teeth is that they sharp or they hard. And so if bitten, it's going to really hurt. And so Hanumanji is saying that you have lived like the tongue amongst the teeth, meaning you've lived in such incredible alertness. And one of the greatest downfalls of a devotee is when we lose that alertness. When we have that alertness, we thrive. Like even just like the smallest sadhanas, like before sipping the water, chant Ram. And then we'll do it for a week, we'll do it for 2 weeks, we'll do it and then we forget. Like that alertness just suddenly to be able to do something goes away. And there'll be people who pray every night and then suddenly it's just gone. Like that alertness to maintain something. And so Hanumanji is saying is actually that's a blessing. What you're saying is horrible is actually a blessing because it has kept you in such alertness, and then your yearning has to be so much more intense. And so it's kept you so incredibly single-pointed. And then Vibhishan doubts that, I don't know if I'll ever be able to see Ramchandraji. And Hanumanji is like, oh, he's coming, don't worry. I'm here looking for Sita. And the point is Ramchandraji is going to come and rescue. And then Vibhishan's, but I'll be on the other side. I wish I could surrender to Ramchandraji. But I don't know if he would even ever accept me. So then maybe all is well. And it's this doubt if I don't know he will ever accept me. That in the Hanuman Chalisa, when it's Jo Mantra Vibhishan Anaya. Lankeshwara Bhai? Yeah. That this is actually no mantra was given to Vibhishan. But the word mantra has many different meanings. One of the meanings of mantra is like what would be the right translation? Not exactly advice, but sometimes when we hear something and then we use it as a repetition in our mind, as a prompt for us to be able to remember so much more. And it's not a good example because maybe y'all don't remember it, but like in The Matrix, when Neo had to do that hardest bit, he kept saying, there is no spoon. And it refers to like long back in the movie where this kid is showing him that this whole world is unreal. And now Neo can actually see that the whole world is unreal. And to remind him, he uses this, there is no spoon. But that's not like a Sanskrit mantra, like a Ham Brahmasmi. It's just like a, what is it, like a slogan? Proverb? Yeah. But it can be even like a proverb, like a this too shall pass. And so like a this too shall pass, when we repeat that to ourselves, it's linking us back to like so much knowledge. Yeah. I remember once when I gave this analogy of in Gita Dhyanam, the life is shown as this horrendous river with crocodiles and sharks and whirlpools and currents and rocks, and then you want a boat so you're safe from this horrendous river, and Krishna's your ferryman to take you across. And then there was the longest time that the devotees in the ashram that were coming regularly, they were like, I'm on the boat. Like I'm on the boat is not a mantra, but it's what is it? What's the word? Yeah. It is hard to translate, but that's what mantra means. Mantra means this trigger statement that we hold on to. It becomes something we can anchor our mind in. Basically, that's it. Yeah, we anchor our mind in that thought or in those few words, and then that kind of makes everything okay. Better? Probably not for the online people, but never mind. So, Hanumanji gives Vibhishan this mantra, and it's go as you are. Because Vibhishan's thinking, will he even accept me? And then that's like, definitely, he accepts everyone and anyone. But I'm a Rakshasa. Doesn't matter what you are. Like he accepted Jatayu, who was a Baucha, and Shabri, who was a tribal woman, and Sugriv, who is a Vanara, and even Bali once, who he killed, but still, there was this, all the Rakshasas also, he forgives and he accepts absolutely everyone. So there's no question of will he accept you or not, just go and just surrender. And then this like, but maybe I need to do something before I go, right? And we all have this sense of, right, I should make myself a bit better, then I can go. Like right now, I can't go. I'm not pure enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm impatient. I'm so impatient. How can I can't go the way I am. Or I have so many greedy thoughts or lustful thoughts or selfish thoughts or distracted thoughts. And so we think, no, I'll make myself better and then I'll go. This is such a trick of the mind. I think I've already spoken about Bhavasagar, the ocean of becoming. When Hanumanji had to cross this ocean, it was the ocean of becoming. This is exactly this Bhavasagar. I'll make myself better and then I'll go to Guru, or I'll start my satsang, or I'll start my meditation, or I'll start my... No. Now, as you are now, go now, start now. I remember once even someone would say, they would come from these classes and they'd say, but I sleep every class, so really I shouldn't come. And then they asked me, should I still come? Because I'm sleeping every class. I said, come. It's good sleep, right? Because even one or two sentences go in. And it's the mind has to get acclimatized to be able to listen to satsang. If we haven't been listening, then the first time the mind doesn't know how to listen. And so if you keep coming, even if you sleep or even if you're distracted, it's creating the ability to be able to listen. Yeah. And so come as you are, even if you're nowhere near perfect, because most of us aren't, is this idea of the journey has to start where you are now. The journey can't start afterwards. In fact, it's just another way of the mind tricking us to procrastinate, and then we don't do it. Right? Like, because we say we'll do it, but then it's not a priority. So it doesn't happen. But if we do now whatever we can do, then we've taken one step. Sometimes 3 steps, sometimes 5 steps. And then even if we fade off away, those 5 steps at least have been taken. And then when we come back, we start from there. And so that idea of nothing is wasted. Every single effort we put in, nothing is wasted. Everything contributes. Even if it's just a training of how to listen, even if it's just a training of surrender, if it's a training in humility, it's a training in being patient. And so come as you are. And so at this point in the Ramayana, Vibhishan doesn't know if he's even going to go to Ramchandraji or not. He wants to, but his dharma is to Lanka and to Ravana, and he does his dharma so well. So even here, Vibhishan's another very, very good example of karma yoga. Whatever had to be done, Vibhishan did. Like, so in terms of ruling Lanka, like Lanka was a very, very successful, flourishing city. And a lot of that had to do with Vibhishan. And because yes, Ravana had all the strength and he would go off and fight with people, but the everyday running, somebody has to look after the everyday running and, taking care of all the details and finishing and following up. And that was all Vibhishan. Vibhishan did a lot of that. And so wherever he could insert kindness and goodness, and he did. But even like the general morale of Lanka, they weren't very interested. So limited scope of what he could do. But Vibhishan meeting Hanumanji, like I said, Hanumanji coming to Lanka is in the symbolism of the Ramayana. Sita ji is Jiva and Hanumanji is Guru, and Guru is coming to Jiva. But very much so for Vibhishan as well. Like Vibhishan, like even more than Sita, Sita ji was with Ramchandraji. Of course, her pain is horrible, and not to make anything less of it. But here, Vibhishan has never met and doesn't know, like, can he? Like, is there any hope of him meeting Ramchandraji? And would there be any hope of him being able to go and surrender to Ramchandraji because he's a Rakshasa? And we, all of us, and at some point have that kind of a feeling, like we become aware of our flaws, and then the flaws seem so big, and sometimes they even are, and we think, is there any hope for me? And this is when we have to remember Hanumanji's statement. Yes, he will accept you. And this is where we have to remember Hanumanji's statement, as you are. He accepts you, not even will, it's present tense. He accepts you as you are. And so for Vibhishan, it's been this lifelong tapas and lifelong yearning. And now he has been given this darshan of Guru and this advice, diksha almost in a way, initiation, because Hanumanji has more experience, more knowledge, exposure than he did. And so Hanumanji keeps going, because not to get sidetracked, he's here to find Sita Ji, and even though it's awesome to meet a fellow devotee, he has to still finish his task, and so he keeps going. And he gets to Ashoka Vatika. And it's such an irony that Sita Ji is sitting in Ashoka Vatika. Ashoka means the place where there is no sorrow. And Sita Ji is sitting in Ashoka Vatika, in a place where there is no sorrow. In Lanka, having been kidnapped by Ravana. Ravana puts her in Ashoka Vatika. And it's perfect. Like, Ramayana is a historical event, but it's like Bhagwan planned everything so brilliantly. Because go back to Ramchandra Ji is Brahman, Sita Ji is Jiva, right? Paramatma, Ramchandra Ji is Paramatma, Sita is Jivatma, you and I, limited entity. Jivatma gets hijacked by Ravana, ego. So off we go. We are in Lanka. Why? Because Ravana has taken over. We have no idea where Paramatma is. We are fully only aware of ego, and we are definitely living in Lanka because, Hong Kong has very much Lanka vibes. And then in Lanka, there's this incredibly beautiful garden called Ashoka Vatika. It's very, very beautiful, this garden. Because you must remember, Ravana had immense wealth and he had resources. And so, of course, the palaces were beautiful and Lanka is well maintained. Because even though we're experiencing sorrow, because ego has hijacked and kidnapped our sensibility, truth is, we have never been separated from Paramatma. And so it doesn't matter how much sorrow you're feeling, your abode is Ashoka. It's just so brilliant. But of course, Sita Ji is feeling immense sorrow. Like here, Vibhishan is thinking, I'm a Rakshasa, and so maybe Ramchandra Ji won't accept me. And what's Sita Ji thinking? I'm his wife, but I didn't listen, and I wanted a deer, and I sent him off, and then I said horrible things to Lakshman, and he's never going to want to see me again. And like, how do you compare which one's worse? You can't compare which one's worse, because her pain is just as real, right? It's just like that. If the doubt that I am not loved and I'm not going to be accepted it's just painful. It doesn't matter the reasoning for why I'm not going to be accepted. And so here there's guilt and there's regret and there's this, I knew better. That's such a horrible feeling, when I knew better, but I still fell. Like, why? When I knew better, why did I still fall? And this is why Sita Ji is just so incredibly beautiful. Because we've all been there. This is Jiva. This is what Jiva is. We've fallen. And what did we fall for? Some silly desire. Like in Sita's case, it was a golden deer she desired. And what's our desire? The same. It will be something that shone in the distance. And then I want. And because I want, we fall in. And the priority was no longer Ram. And the priority was the thing I want. And then Ram got pushed to the side. I want got pushed in the front. This is us. This is all of us. We are Sita. And then usually you get what you want, or you don't get what you want, and you realize the foolishness of even wanting it in the first place. I knew better, and desire still got the better of me. And so all my knowing is useless. And that's what Sitaji is feeling in this moment as she is sitting in Ashoka Vatika, and she's sitting under an Ashoka tree, weeping. The picture is even given, huh? It's in this that she's sitting with her knees held close to her. Yeah, similar to this. Crying into herself. She's curled into a little ball and she's crying. But with every breath, she is saying Ram. With absolutely every breath, she is remembering Ram. And so, taken away by ego. And so, feeling separate. But her every thought is Ram. And if her every thought is Ram, then there cannot be sorrow. And this is why she is in Ashoka Vatika. And so outwardly, there is sorrow for not being with Ram. And so Hanumanji has finally found her. He has finally come into the Ashoka Vatika and he sees her, and then he sees all these Rakshasas guarding her. And there's like 10, 11, 12, 15 Rakshasas in the garden guarding her. Like she was really being guarded. It's not like one or two, they were a lot of Rakshasas. And they were given this project from Ravana. All the guards that were guarding Sitaji were given a project that talk about me continuously so that she starts to admire me, starts to want me. Because that's how we get enticed, right? We listen to something and then we get enticed. So convince her of my glories, prowess, credibilities, and threaten her that if she doesn't choose me, her future is going to be miserable. And so these Rakshasas really do. They constantly talking about Ravana. And then really this is samsara. This is what happens when ego hijacks us. When ego hijacks our mind, then the mind is listening to, all this advertising about the world. Do this and get this and become this. And it's constantly there. Like even if you don't watch Instagram or don't watch TV, and if you don't watch, you just have to walk in the MTR and the posters are of, thin people with flawless skin, and then somebody else with hair in some. Sometimes I wonder what are they even advertising? Because I can't read Chinese, so I can't make out what they're advertising. Sometimes I will know what they're advertising. They're advertising the shoes, but like the shoes are at the bottom and the rest of the picture is so much selling us what? Selling us a facade of how we should look and what this is happiness. Own this and you will be happy. Do this and you will be happy. Visit here and you will be happy. And it's just constant bombardment with this. And so if you think about Sitaji sitting under that Ashoka tree being tormented by the Rakshasas, again, this is Jiva. We constantly being tormented by sense pleasures saying, enjoy me. Or other people presenting us with sense pleasures. to be enjoyed, or snippets of gossip, increase in status, and it's just constant. And so Sita ji is not listening. She is continuing to say Ram in her mind. And so Ram becomes the mantra to protect her from being able to be bombarded by this perpetual torturing. And this is something we can do. We in the world, being perpetually bombarded with stimulation. And we need a mantra to be able to ward off this constant influx of temptation and stimulation and invitation. And so now Ravana enters the garden. So, Hanumanji sees this tormenting happening and already he gets very angry. And then he's thinking, now how should I go and protect Sita? And just then Ravana enters. And so he doesn't do anything because he wants to see the scenario. And when Ravana walks in, he walks in with this whole entourage of people. He doesn't come alone. And he's some 7-8 wives he brings with him. Like if he's really trying to convince Sita ji to be his wife, I don't know why he's bringing wives with him. Like, not very smart. And then he's got all these guards also with him, and 1-2 ministers also with him. And so he brings this whole entourage. And and in the Ramayana, when you read it, it's not so dramatic. But when you see these plays, Sita! The dialogue is always so dramatic. I saw, but it's depicted very beautifully in in the dramas. In that Swadesh movie, I don't know if you've seen, there's a song where they dramatize the whole performance of the Ramayana. It's done so beautifully. And yeah, so there's this, always in the movies and in the animations when they're showing it, the character that they can really dramatize in Ravana is his arrogance. Actually, it is something that's easy to act, right? Like act humble, and you don't know how to act humble, but act arrogant. Sita! So easy to be able to act arrogant. It's interesting that it's easy to act the negative ones, not always easy to act a virtue. And even when we are, training the kids in the Ramayana, it's like, be more like Ram, and the kid is just like, it's like, no, don't do that. Be like that. Well, tell me what to do. There's nothing you can do. Like you have to imbibe Ramness. You have to be regal. No, don't look arrogant, because then when you tell them to be regal, then they start. So interesting that it's hard to depict genuineness. Genuineness can't be acted. Isn't that such a nice thing? Whereas all those things that we aren't, all the horrible qualities, we can act it. So Ravana comes in and says, Sita. And first he tries to cajole her that, why would you want to be married to that ascetic and live in the forest? You can have the palace to yourself. I will give you the best palace here in Lanka. So again, right, the world tempts us with things, money, power, security, comforts. And she's not listening, she's not responding. And then he's praising himself. He's selling himself. Like, I have conquered the heavens. I have more wealth than anyone else. I am foremost amongst kings. She doesn't say a word. She doesn't talk to him. In some Ramayans, in Kamba Ramayana, she talks. In Tulsi Ramayana, she just doesn't talk to him. It's like you're not even worth. It's like, like mosquitoes. It's like your sound is like an annoying buzz. That's like, go away. Whereas in Kamba Ramayana, it's very powerful dialogue that when I have had the Lord of the universe as a husband, someone as noble and great as Ramchandraji. Why would I even look at you? A cockroach like you, or something very insulting it was. But she praises Ramchandraji extensively, and then she calls him something very demeaning. I can't remember what it was, but something like, anyway. And when the beauty of Ramchandraji rivals and puts even like a sunset to shame, why would I even look at your face? And all this kind of dialogue in Kamba Ramayana, that Sitaji in Kamba Ramayana is wow. Yeah, she punches with her words. Everything that Ravana says is like she has a counter. When he says, I've conquered the heavens, and even there she has an answer of, but you haven't conquered your mind, because why would you want a woman that doesn't want you? Or something like that she has said, but far more insulting. Like you haven't conquered what's meant to be conquered, or something like that. It was very, very, very strong. Here, though, this Sita ji is like, you are not worth my breath. You are not even worth looking at. And so finally, she's not answering, or she's answering in Ramayana praising Ramchandraji. And so now third tactic is insult and threaten. If you don't marry me, I will cut you up and eat you for breakfast. Rakshasas ate meat, and human meat was no problem to eat. So it wasn't even an idle threat. Ravana would have been able to feed Sitaji's flesh if he himself didn't eat it. But so the threat, he ends with threat. And then he says, I give you, can't remember how long, so many days to think about it, and that's it. After that, I'm not going to bother. Like, this is it. Now you make your decision. Like, I've been cajoling you, and I've been, being patient with you, and now enough's enough. I'm not going to put up with this treatment anymore. In this version, where she hasn't spoken the whole time, she puts a blade of grass on the floor, and she talks to the floor, to this blade of grass. And as the insult that I would rather talk to grass than talk to you. Like, and if you think of how proud Ravana is, and then to be insulted by Sitaji, then how is it so interesting that our mind could still desire something that insults us to this extent? Because he still wants her. Our mind is so deluded. Like, she's never going to be willingly affectionate. And that's actually what she wants, right? And that's not going to happen. And yet he's insisting. Like, you're being insulted, but you still want. But what you want is not what she's giving. It's this notion in your head, which doesn't exist. And then that's so often. So often. And this is why Sita is Jiva. And Ravana is ego. What ego is deluded. Like, it wants something that doesn't even exist. And it's so strong. So strong. Recently, somebody was telling me about how when I die, I don't want my money to be used this way, and I don't want this to happen, and I don't. This long list, and you're dead. But while I'm alive, the desire for what should happen after I die can be so strong. And if anyone thinks about this logically, you're not even there. But we're not logical. And so we continue to want it with such earnestness. Ravana wanting Sita with such desperation, even though she's never going to be affectionate to him. Like it's very, very clear. Like giving her 3 more days or 2 more weeks, or it's not going to suddenly happen. And yet the mind gets so stuck in this delusion. And so here, same. When she puts this blade of grass, the dialogue is, how could I ever want you? But more importantly, my body, mind, heart, and soul belongs to Ram and Ram alone. But I often see this blade of grass in a different way. Now, earlier in the Ramayana, and Hanumanji was given this message. So when I have already told you all the story, when Ramchandraji gave Hanumanji the ring, he says you could lose the ring, or Sitaji might say that you stole the ring, and so how do I know you really belong to? You're really a messenger from Ramchandraji. And Ramchandraji narrates the story of Jayant, who came as a crow and pecked on Sitaji's foot and then bleeds, and then Ramchandraji woke up, and then he plucks a blade of grass and he turns it into a Brahmastra that follows Jayant. Now, Brahmastra is like an atomic bomb. It's not a small weapon. I mean, it's small, but it's a very big destructive force. And so, like one crow, and to kill one crow of Brahmastra is like very, very extreme. But Ramchandraji was that angry that this crow had hurt Sitaji. And so, of course, Ramchandraji's strength of mind that even though it's such a powerful, it can be contained into a small space and it would hurt only the crow. Because the mantras control the weapon. So in the Mahabharata and in the Ramayana, it's the mantras that control the weapon. They're not physically weapons, they're weapons wielded by the mind. I'm not going to go into that. So this blade of grass, Ramchandraji turned into a Brahmastra, a blade of grass. Like so small, so soft, so can be insignificant, and yet here it becomes a Brahmastra. And here we see that Sita Ji has taken a blade of grass. And she hasn't turned it into a Brahmastra, but she's turned it into a force field where he can't enter. He can't come close to her. It's in Sita Ji's hand, that blade of grass is a powerful weapon. And Ravana can't fight against it. I mean, there's many, many reasons given to ensure that we know Ravana didn't actually touch her. And one is that Ravana has been cursed. That if he forces himself on a woman, his head will fall off. So he wouldn't dare force himself because he had already once done it, and so he got cursed. And so some say that Sitaji was protected because he was cursed. But that doesn't do Sitaji justice. Curse or no curse, it was her strength that he couldn't touch her. Like, okay, sure, he couldn't force himself on her, but he could have, hit her or beat her or nothing. He doesn't do anything. She sits under that tree, chanting Ram. And her mind is so strong, and the force of the mantra of Ram's name is so strong, that chanting Ram's name on this blade of grass becomes her weapon, and it also becomes her shield. It's no longer a blade of grass. Just like how Ram had the power to turn a blade of grass into something so powerful, Sita has the power to turn a blade of grass into something so incredibly powerful. And so Ravana storms off, very upset that he couldn't get his way, and Sitaji had. And I've spoken more about the dynamics, but her leela of her as a jiva is that she is physically crying and she is being tormented by these rakshasas for days now. And so in a sense, her spirit has suffered and close to breaking, just from sorrow of separation and feeling of helplessness, and that too is very much the jiva experience. And jiva experience is very much this feeling of helplessness. I meet so many different people, and in so many ways we are helpful. Sometimes some element of disease comes, and where did it even come from? And we're just so helpless to this disease. And sometimes it's me, and sometimes it's a loved one. Of course, death. We're just so helpless to death. But even circumstances, like Trump has come in, and so many of our kids have had to come back to Hong Kong because visas laws all got changed. And here they were set on one trajectory. They were going to do this, and they were going to do that, and they were going to do that. And that changed. You're back here. Oh. Because circumstances and laws, and they feel so incredibly helpless. Of course, they're not helpless. There's plenty you can do in Hong Kong, and there's the whole of the rest of the world. But the feeling, because they had wanted this path, and then, nope, you can't have it overnight. The feeling of helpless. And so Sitaji sitting under that tree, tormented by all these rakshasas, having Ravana again and again and again and test her will, having to be so incredibly strong. There's that feeling of incredible helplessness. And with every breath, even though she's saying Ram, and Ram is her strength, remember she has this guilt of what she said to Lakshman, and this regret of wanting the golden deer in the first place. And so what Hanumanji sees now is a very small person. And so it's interesting because we spoke about Hanumanji crossing the ocean and when to be big and when to be small. And Sitaji shows us. Because when Ramyana comes, she's big. She plucks this blade of grass and talks to the blade of grass. Or in Kamba Ramayana, she answers him back with full force. And Ravana leaves, and she's become small. And she's crying. And she tells Trijata. Trijata is Vibhishan's daughter. And so Vibhishan has ensured that one of the guards protecting Sitaji is Trijata, his own daughter, so that Sita has at least one friend in this horrible Lanka. And that too is Jiva's naseeb or fate or story, right? Like every Jiva, you feel helpless, you feel tormented, you feel, and there's always going to be just this one person who you can hold on to. And then, of course, now Hanumanji is going to come, and so there's Guru also that comes. But Trijita is a great source of comfort, and Trijita is a clairvoyant. She has dreams that reveal the future. In next class, I'll tell the details, but because I've forgotten the exact details of the dream, that Ravana is sitting on a donkey, facing backwards, that's riding south. steeped in symbolism. So south is south is death. So riding south is he's traveling towards his death. Forgot what the riding donkey part was. Thanks. And so to help Sita ji, Trijita tells her, I had this dream. Now, whether she really sees things or not, it's just nice to have someone say it. But Trijita did. Trijita was clairvoyant. And so Hanumanji is watching this whole exchange, and he's watching Sita ji cry. And he's sitting on the tree and he's thinking, now what should I do? And we'll see next week. I thought we'll burn Lanka today already, but I had a lot to say about Vibhishan and then Ashoka Matika. Any questions? Yeah.
Saying that